So the 5 types of attraction are physical, financial, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And most of us get involved in a relationship based on the first 3. People don't know how they want to receive love, and they don't know how to give love. And like we said earlier, that the old wisdom is like to love and be loved is the biggest need, but we don't know how to love and how to give love, and we carry so much of our baggage from previous relationships and experiences, and we bring them into a new person. So it's like, that person treated me like that must mean all men or all women are like that. Which means now when I'm with this woman, I'm going to look at her through the lens of the last person that I was with.
Look for them to create this experience again, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you
find evidence of why this person is this way. Yeah.
Exactly, and so now you're approaching each person with the baggage of the last person, which doesn't make sense. You're not coming at it from a fresh, new experience with the same lessons for yourself, but we start applying the lessons to the other person. So I think that's the reason why we struggle to have an intimate connection. Now, one of the things I talk about in here are the 5 types of attraction.
Yes.
And the reason why I think this is the best way to figure out—
Attraction or love language?
No, these are the 5 types of attraction that I talk about.
Go ahead.
So the 5 types of attraction are physical, financial, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I'll explain what I mean by all of them. So physical is obvious. Yep. She or he is hot.
Attracted to them.
I'm attracted to them. Financial or wealth, I like what they own, I like what they have, I like what they've achieved. I like that he went to Princeton or Harvard. I like that she's a scientist or a CEO. I like that she's a supermodel. Like, you like their status, right? So you're attracted to that. The third thing that we're attracted to is people's mental abilities. This is like when you're attracted to someone's mind. Like, you just love the way they think. You love the way they articulate themselves. You love all of that. Like, you're attracted to that. The fourth is the emotional. This is when you're attracted to someone's emotional intelligence. You're like, oh, they're very caring, they're compassionate, they're supportive, they have these good traits. And the fifth and final one is spiritual, where you're like, you're connected to that person's values on a very deep level, like what they really live by. Now notice the first 3, I equate them to chemistry. And the last 2 I equate to compatibility. So the first 3 are chemistry, and most of us get involved in a relationship based on the first 3. But here's the issue. You can feel chemistry multiple times per day. You can feel it with the receptionist, you can feel it with your personal trainer, you can feel it with the barista at the coffee shop, you can feel it with the waiter or the waitress. The spark, you can feel that anywhere. Like, you can find someone attractive by one of those qualities every single day. And the challenge is we get into a relationship based on simply one of the first 3. And there's nothing wrong with that as a starting point, it just can't be the end point. And so what we do is we keep convincing ourselves that the first 3 of chemistry is more powerful than the last 2 of compatibility, and we're letting chemistry do the heavy lifting. And it can't. We're making chemistry do the heavy lifting, the heavy work, the like pull and push, and like, okay, like you just take care of this. That's why so many people rely on good sex to save a relationship.
They'll always be in conflict.
Totally.
If the values and the compatibility are not there and you're relying on chemistry, there'll always be some conflict.
Always.
Yeah.
And chemistry really easily is those top 3, and which is good to have, so you should, but my point is—
You need to have both.
You need to have both. But you can't just say, because I'm mentally attracted to how that person thinks, that's good marriage material. That's not good enough. You can't say because we make broad generalizations. We say things like, oh, because he or she has a top degree from a top college or a business school and they're at a top company, they must be really kind, loving, and organized. It's like, what?
Right.
Like, how did you just—
Be a good parent,
Yeah, must have been a good parent. How did you just draw that parallel? And so that's the way I would talk about entering a relationship. Is it can start with the first 3, but don't let it end without the last 2.
Yeah, have the emotional and the spiritual, the values.
Correct. That has to align for a real long-lasting relationship.
I feel like I could do this for another 3
Me
hours.
too, man.
This is amazing.
So good.
I want to finish with one thought about service, because you live a life of service. I feel like my mission is to be of service to you.
You are, 100%.
In my business, in my relationships, with my friendships, it's all about service for me as well. And this is I think it's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, is that what it is?
Which one is it?
Plant trees.
No, so this one is like a famous statement that we're sharing. Yeah.
Where you say, plant trees under whose shade you do not plan to sit. I remember you told me that.
This one's from the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah.
You told me that a couple of years ago, and I remember that really blew my mind. because in business, when I started out, I think it was a lot of like, okay, let me do this for you and you do this for me. Let's do reciprocal type of stuff. I was in the online marketing world where it was about joint ventureships. It was about affiliate marketing, and I'll do this and then you promote me, right? And then I started to shift it. When I got into the podcast 7 years ago, I said, I'm just gonna bring on people I like and I'm just gonna serve. If it comes around, cool. If not, cool. And it's hard, I think, to switch that mentality, but it's so rewarding to come from a place of giving and service, to literally wanting to see other people succeed, whether they help you or not in return. How do we get to that place of that mindset when we're like, but I really need some help right now, and I really want someone to support me in return, and I don't want to give all my energy to someone if they're never going to give me anything in return? How do we balance that?
Yeah, no, that's such a smart question, because I think the challenge is that we become overly compassionate often to people in a certain way. So what I mean by that is being compassionate and being giving isn't about spending your whole day with one person who needs your attention and affection if your purpose is to do something different. So for example, you're putting out this podcast, you put out video content, you write books. This is serving lots of different people in lots of ways. And you're not expecting, apart from the person buying the book, and getting the value from it, you're not really expecting them to do anything for you, right? You're not asking them to come and champion for you if they don't want to. So you're already planting those seeds, you're already sharing in that way. And I think the mistake we make is when we are overly compassionate to one person and we're doing it expecting that they're gonna do something back, right? So the only way
don't be overly compassionate expecting something in return.
Yeah, don't just if you see yourself,
don't do that if you're gonna
don't do that if you're gonna feel that, and that's okay. Like, that doesn't make you less compassionate. It doesn't make you a bad person. Like, if I don't want to, and I have rules about, there are certain people in my life that I don't ask for favors, because I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm having to ask them, because not that they wouldn't do it or whatever, I just don't want to do that. It's just not who I am, and it's like, but that's fine. And there are certain people in my life that I won't give to because I know they're going to keep asking for stuff. And so you have to protect yourself. And I think self-protection and being honest with yourself is the best way. So my favorite analogy in this is, if someone's drowning in the ocean, if you're fit and healthy and you're a lifeguard, great, you can go and save them. But if you're not, you might need to call the real lifeguard to come and help them out. And that's what real compassion is. Real compassion, if you can't help someone, if you're feeling toxic one day, you're feeling negative one day, you're feeling you're not really giving from your heart, it's better to introduce them to someone or find someone else who can help them than to go in there with all these toxic emotions and now you're expecting them to return the favor. It's better to not do it. If you're gonna do something and in your heart of hearts you're actually feeling bitter and regretting it, it's better not to do it, because guess what? You weren't compassionate when you did it with that intention. Compassion's about intention. It's not about the result. Like, two people could give the same amount to charity. One person gives it for PR, one person gives it because they care about the kids. Who's happy? The person who gave it for the kids. The person, both people's money had the same impact, but the intention is what defined what happened. So if you're begrudgingly going out there and helping someone, and in your heart of hearts you're like, oh, I can't believe they asked me, who are they? Like, I don't even like them, like, they never helped me, and then you help them, guess what? That's not compassion. Protect yourself, deal with it. Deal with that toxic emotion. So I don't help people that when I feel like that. And I give myself that space.
You just say no, or
I just say no. Yeah, I can't. Well, I'll be honest with them. I'll say, honest in the best way that you can. I don't think I can support you on this because I don't feel right about it. Or it doesn't make sense to me, or whatever it is. Like, it's not the right fit. And I think that's actually stopping yourself from being a people pleaser.
Yes.
Because we actually are not compassionate. We're just people pleasers. We actually just want people to think we're like magnanimous and amazing, so we'll go to everything to support everyone. But it's like,
we're resentful people pleasers.
Exactly.
We please, and then we're resentful that we didn't
exactly
get what we wanted.
And then now we want to make them feel guilty for not doing it back. So I make a conscious effort to support the people I love, to make an effort with the people I love and do more there, and that's fine. Your compassion you don't have to be this overarching person who's like doing it for everyone. Like, that's part of the journey. It's going to take time to get there.
Of course.
How do you know when you've found the one? And a lot of you have been asking, Jay, how do you know when you've found the one? So here you go. This is the video for you. If you've got any insights or ideas on how you know when you've found the one, write them in the comments while you're listening to me rambling on and giving you these insights. Now, think about it for a moment. In your life, you've probably had relationship and love advice from so many different people and places. You've probably had some from your family.
Your grandpa, he just asked me to marry him one day, and I was like, no.
No.
And you've probably had some from your friends.
You're already saying I love you in this relationship? It's been like a month. It's been 3 months.
Not to forget, you've definitely had tons of advice, knowingly or unknowingly, from the TV programs you watch.
Dumper.
And without a doubt, the movies that you watch have had a massive impact on what you think love looks like.
Still isn't over.
And last but not least, the songs that you listen to. Every year, new movies, songs, TV programs are all released about finding love. You've got dating shows, reality TV, and every week you have a new app that's promising you it will help you find the one. You've got apps that help you find vegan people, non-vegan people, people who love cars, people who love traveling, and then even
Cuddler. It connects you with people who are just looking to, you guessed it, cuddle.
Bristler matches people with beards with those who want to stroke them.
And some of those are pretty weird. And not only have we been exposed to so many different ideas and advice from what we consume, but even the people around us. From watching our parents, to watching our friends, to watching our aunts and uncles, to watching the people that we grew up around. All of these ideas have left an imprint on what we think about love and finding the one. And all of these things also put ideas into our heads about what the other person likes. You know, girls like guys who drive cars like this, guys like girls who dress like this. And this starts to form our ideas about what we believe about relationships. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite ones. Maybe some of you have seen the movie A Bronx Tale. Maybe you haven't, you can check it out. And in the movie, there's a scene where this really cool, suave, I believe he's somewhat of a gangster guy, says to the younger guy who's kind of being mentored by him that you'll know when you found the one when a girl does this one thing. You want to know what that one thing is?
Yes.
He says that the ideal girl is a girl that when you take her to your car, you open the door, you let her in, she sits down, and while you're walking around the back to get to the driver's seat, she'll lean over and open your door for you. If she doesn't do that, she's out, right? She's not the one. So it's crazy to believe that there's so many different stories, so many different examples of advice being given to us all across our lives. What I'm going to do today is give you my top 10 ways of knowing when you've found the one. Are you ready? Here we go. Number one, they'll support and mutually respect your dreams. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to do your dreams for you. It doesn't mean that they're always going to be there cheering you on, but it means that they respect your priority about your dreams. They value what you're chasing. They believe in it as much as you do, and they want to see you get there. They're not trying to hold you back. They're not trying to stop you from getting there. They're not trying to restrict you and trap you in any way. They want to see you grow genuinely.
Follow your dreams.
Number two, they'll really be present with you in the moment. I love being around people who help me forget to look at my phone. That's the kind of person that you want to be with. Someone who's not distracted by their phone, by their messages, by their friends, by anything else. When they're with you, they're with you. If they keep forgetting what you're saying, chances are they're not the one.
Are you even listening to me?
Number three, the person is self-aware and knows their self-worth. They're independent. They're able to grow on their own. They have their own set of friends. They have their own set of values. They have their own set of priorities. Some of them may match with yours, but some of them may be different. But they're their own person. They're not looking for you to complete them. They're not looking for you to finish them. They're looking for you to enhance them and help them grow. They're growing with you, and they're going to help you grow too.
I'm here to help.
Number four is the tough one. It's called trust. Probably one of the hardest, rarest thing in the world. And I'm talking about without checking.
Are you spying on me?
Now, this one's a tough one because sometimes you find out the hard way, and some of us have been there. So my take is that trust should be earned. It's not something that should be given up front, but it's something that is earned. Usually we have this belief that I either trust someone or I don't trust them at all. My idea is that there's actually layers of trust. You have no trust at the bottom, but then there's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, etc., which leads to unconditional trust. The challenge is we put our expectation when we're with someone that we can unconditionally trust trust them. And actually their trust levels down here, that gap is exactly how much pain you end up feeling. Remember, trust is something that's earned. Don't give it straight away. Let that person through their actions and their thoughts and their words earn your trust.
You're gonna have to earn it.
Number 5, you don't always need someone or something else to keep the chemistry, keep the entertainment, and make things fresh. When you feel like you always need an external form of thrill or excitement to keep everything special between you two, it's a sign that you may not actually be connecting with each other, but connecting with that other thing.
Want to sit and watch some more TV?
Number 6, you can spend time apart but can't wait to be back. So you're comfortable traveling in different parts of the world for work, studying in different areas of the world, maybe in the same country, maybe in a different one, but you can't wait to be together. And the challenge is that we usually get frustrated. When you're apart from someone that you love or want to be with, you start getting frustrated and you take it out on them, which actually weakens the relationship. You know when you found the one because you'll realize that you don't let that frustration affect your relationship with them. You find other ways of releasing, sharing that, but you're making sure that you're not ruining your own relationship because of the frustration of not being together in the first place.
I don't want to fight with you.
Number 7, you can disagree. This is the tough one. People think that you found the one when you agree on everything, when you like the same stuff, when everything matches. That's not true at all. You can actually disagree with that person. You can have different ideas and you still learn to work together. It's pretty difficult to find anyone in the world who agrees with you on absolutely everything. So to expect to find the one who has that, that's pretty unlikely.
I disagree.
Number 8, you don't have to like each other's friends. I think there's so much pressure to be liked by the other person's friends, for them to like your friends, for your friends to like them. Chances are that you're putting in way too many tick boxes that are going to be quite difficult to manage. Now, if your friends think that they're totally crazy or they think your friends are crazy, definitely take a look at that.
She's very picky, dude.
But the truth is that it's important that you guys get along. Even if they're friends with a whole different circle of people and you're friends with a whole different circle of people, that doesn't mean you can't be great together.
We are great together. We are a great team.
Number 9, you can be your real self. Not your LinkedIn profile, not your Facebook profile, not your Instagram profile, not your Twitter profile. You can let go of all those identities and just be yourself.
Who are you? Really?
And finally, number 10, you argue not to get one up on each other, not to beat the other person, not to defeat the other person, but so that you can come to a healthy conclusion together. It's more of a discussion rather than an argument or a debate, because it's not about who's right, but it's about making sure that you come to the right conclusion together. You telling someone like, these are the 3 things she wants in bed, like, that's not going to change your relationship if you aren't compatible, if you don't connect, if you don't speak the right love languages, if you're not empathetic, if you're not vulnerable, like, then that 3 list of this and 7 list of that isn't going to do anything.
It's void.
And that's where I'm trying to get to with people, because I don't want people to use sex as a substitute for that. Mm-hmm. And I don't want people to use sex as an excuse for that. Mm-hmm. And I don't want people to use sex as a cover-up for not having any of that, because I know, having been in tons of relationships where it was just physical, and that's all there was, that's the only time it felt good. It didn't feel good at any other time. I didn't go home with a beautiful feeling in my heart. And then when it's only about that, that's also when it can be easily replaced.
Right.
Because that's easily changeable.
Right.
And that's why I think so many people go through, and I talk about in my videos so much about cheating and loyalty, because when it is just physical, it becomes so much more easier to just disconnect and throw it away.
All those things happen.
Yeah.
And now heartbreak.
Yes.
What's your advice on heartbreak?
Oof.
I know you have a video up. It's like the 5 things people should do through heartbreak.
Yes,
and one of them is like, get rid of everything from the past and only focus on the present and the future.
Yeah.
That's hard for people.
I like getting rid of visual triggers. I think the challenge in a lot of our lives is that we're surrounded by the same sounds, the same sights, and the same people that we were in our past. And I see this with anything, and I'm sure you felt this. When you went deeper into your faith, did your circles change?
100%.
Right. When you went deeper into your faith, did what you look at change?
100%.
Right. So you look at
my heart changed.
Your heart changed,
because,
but internal and external.
Yes, because for me, when I transformed in my faith, it was a transformation of my heart.
Yes.
Not about what I was actually doing or not doing.
Correct. And that's what I feel for anyone. Anyone that I've witnessed and observed go through transformation in their life, their environments have changed. And so for me, a lot of us are making it harder for yourself. It's like saying, I want to start working out every day, but I don't own any trainers, right? It's like, that's not going to work. It's like doing the opposite. Like, I want to go on a diet, but I'm going to keep chocolate cake in my refrigerator, right? Like, it's that. So you're saying,
you're enabling
I want to
yourself.
get over the past, but I'm going to keep my ex's sweater right next to me, and I'm going to keep all these text messages that I can keep reading through again.
Why do people go back and read text messages?
Because
from someone that broke their heart.
Because nostalgia and imagination is more powerful, right? The feeling of nostalgia, and this is in studies too, like the research behind nostalgia is you always think things were better in the past with something like that. So you read a message and you're like, oh, but they loved me so much. And now all you're doing is reality's here and you've got your own version of reality playing here. So you're basically writing your own movie script up here when reality is telling you this. And nostalgia is that script.
It's that fantasy that's never gonna become.
It's that fantasy that isn't real. So it's you saying, I don't want to accept what is, and I'm trying to accept what if.
Those people who can't get over that hump, what do you tell them?
One of the biggest things, like,
do you really want to?
No. It's a good conversation. I think one of the biggest things I say to people is just like, let's kind of break their space that they're in. It's almost like that person needs a space change and they need to get out of that zone. And so for me, I'm always encouraging people to start doing new things. I think it's so powerful when you go and have a new experience, when you try something new, you join a new class, you've never done it before. Because guess what? It's about finding yourself again. So you're now learning new things about yourself. You're now falling in love with yourself.
It's about falling in love with yourself.
Correct. And I think that the biggest mistake we make in that time is everyone's telling you, oh, when's the rebound? Like, are you gonna date this guy? When are you gonna start dating again? Or this girl? When are you gonna be out there again? And it's almost like, well, no, maybe it's about I go inside this time and spend some time with myself. And I think new experiences are a beautiful way of doing that because you only learn new things about yourself when you do new things with yourself. Right?
Ooh,
like
preach.
we never do new things with ourselves. You're always doing the same things with the same people. But imagine you start doing new things on your own, and now you have new memories. And one of the things I've been talking about a lot with people is forming new memories. If you don't make new memories, the old ones will always hold you back. And that's why we're stuck in the old, because we're not making any new ones. So the old ones just keep pulling you back. So the best way to make new memories is A, set up an experience, do it with a friend that you love. And when you go out there, it's this technique that's often used for grounding in therapy and everything, but I use it for presence, and that's how we were trained in it as monks. When you go somewhere and you're like, I want to take a mental picture of this. How many times have you ever said that? Where you go somewhere, you're like, I want to have this in my mind and I want to keep it forever.
And the iPhone camera is not going to
and the camera is not going to do it. It's not going to keep it emotionally. And I think we're so bad at creating emotional memories that are new. So the best way to do it is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So when you're in a space, and let's say I want to do it of this, I look at 5 things that I could see. So 5 things that I can see right now. So I'm going to say you, obviously, important part of the memory.
Oh, you're important too. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm doing it with you.
Yeah, I'm going to say the rug.
Okay.
So I'm going for space.
Okay.
I'm going to look at the ceiling. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to say the couch. So there are 5 things that I can see. The second thing is 4 things that you can touch.
Okay.
So 4 things I can touch.
My silky dress, my
silky.
really dry skin.
You're good at descriptions. Silky dress, dry skin. This is good.
The rough.
Textured,
the
rough.
Textured, yes. And my glass.
Yeah.
My glass
4
water.
things. Amazing. 3 things that you can hear.
I can hear the light.
Yes.
I can hear myself swallow, and I can hear your voice.
Perfect. And then 2 things that you can smell.
I can smell my garlic breath. And I'm having a hard time smelling basically anything because I'm 7 months pregnant.
Sure,
but
so nothing.
You can hear how clogged I am.
Yeah, me too.
But maybe my perfume.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then one
it's
thing.
all about me.
Yeah, no, that's good. And then one thing you can taste.
Garlic.
Great. So if you did that in an experience that you wanted to hold on to forever, all you have to do to make a mental picture, take a mental picture of everything is do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
I really like that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
5,
And
4,
so,
3, 2,
and
1.
this is what I mean by when you're going through a breakup, the biggest mistake you make is the old memories hold you back because you don't know how to make new memories. And so my advice to everyone is go and make new memories.
Okay, so I did Tony Robbins, right? And it was enlightening, it was fun. And the biggest thing that I came away with was I don't live in the present. I'm constantly living for the what's next.
Yes.
Here we go. Okay, team, it's time to hustle.
Yeah.
And he said, what are you grateful for? And I mean, I could sit there and say, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful, like I could list a few things. But he said, what are you grateful for in your career? And it's like, I had to really go deep. And I think that maybe if I started doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I would be able to go back to experiences that I thought my heart remembered, but my mind didn't.
Totally.
And I am totally implementing 5, 4, 3, 2,
And that's
1.
exactly what it's, so today it's used for a lot of people who struggle with anxiety to bring them back into the moment. When we were trained in as monks, it was what we did for presence, like exactly what you said.
Right.
And this is why the biggest mistake we make is when you're having an experience, the only sense we activate is the eyes. And that's why when you're trying to think of a past memory, you go, what was it again? Right. Because you have to close your eyes because that was the only one that was activated. Whereas what we've done with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is you've now absorbed this memory through all the 5 senses, which means each one of them is going to give you a different part.
I like it.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, switching gears a little bit. I really feel like insecurities breed negativity, right?
Yeah.
And a motto that I like to live by is kill people with kindness. What do you think about that phrase?
Yeah, I love that.
You do?
I agree with you completely. This is the beautiful thing that happens when you say thank you to someone who's kind to you. It does 3 things. The first thing is you recognize kindness. So now you're triggering your mind to start recognizing kindness, and you're now recognizing kindness in them. The second thing you do is you reinforce kindness in them. They realize, they're like, oh, when I'm kind, people appreciate it.
Right.
So I'm gonna be more kind. So you've now reinforced kindness within them. And the third thing is you help them repeat it. Now that you've shown them that their kindness is reciprocated, they're now gonna be kind to more people. So now you've started this domino effect of kindness just by thanking one person.
Who knew?
Yeah.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about being a monk and like how you spend half the day working on yourself and half of the other day working to give out to others. And what is your take on putting yourself first? And like, is it selfish?
So with monk teachings, the point is you are taking care of yourself first in order to serve better. So it's always like, I'm gonna put myself first so that I can fill up, so that I can serve with more. Because we want to serve with our best selves.
Right.
I always say this to people. It's like, people are always like, Jay, should I go to this party? Should I go out to this event? Should I call up this person? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I'm just like, well, if you're going to show up there with that energy,
don't go.
where you're going to have to convince yourself to go, then guess what? That person's going to feel that.
Right.
So if you want to show up, then you're going to show up with your best. So I feel, for me, it's not selfish if the intention is I want to give more and serve more.
That's good.
It's selfish when it's just like, oh, I'm just gonna take care of myself because that's all that matters.
Right.
Where it's just like, no, I'm gonna take care of myself because I wanna give my best self to the people I love,
right,
to the people of the world, to the people I care for. And so I'm gonna keep prioritizing myself. So I went down the wrong journey. When I first started wanting to serve, I used to just think, oh yeah, I'm gonna stay up all night. If someone needs me to drive halfway across the country, I'll do that. And I would do things like that. And I started to realize I was just people pleasing. I wasn't serving. I was actually serving my own ego. That was the most selfish thing. It was the most selfish thing because it was just people pleasing. But then I realized actually me saying, look, you know what? I need to get a good night's sleep tonight. But I promise you, first thing in the morning, we're gonna talk about this and I'm gonna bring my best self to this conversation. People started to respect that and value that and gave me that space. Are you tired of being single but sick of the dating scene? Are you thinking about just giving up? If so, this video is for you. 50 million. That's the number of members online dating site OkCupid reported in 2020 according to data from SurveyMonkey Intelligence. And in any given minute, an average of 100,000 users are online on OkCupid alone. That's not counting Match.com, Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, or any of the other dating sites and apps. 2020 estimates from CompareCamp state that in the US alone, 30 million people were using online dating sites. And get this, Tinder's total number of paid subscribers tops over 59 million.
What?
Online dating has real appeal, right? It's easy and convenient. You can browse pictures and profiles while you're eating breakfast or watching Netflix. Plus, instead of just friends of friends or people your mom wants to set you up with, the number of potential dating candidates you have access to expands exponentially when you sign up for an online dating.
So what's the catch?
OkCupid asks users up to 5,000 different questions to help them find their ideal match. And guess what? All of this online chat with more people, plus the ability to pre-screen them, may actually be why you're still single.
I knew it.
So if you're frustrated that you haven't found the one and you're thinking about giving up on dating, keep watching because I have some insights and solutions that may help. I got some really powerful and profound insights into what's wrong with how we're dating from relationship experts and psychologists John and Julie Gottman, who are also husband and wife. I got to interview them for my podcast and they told me something shocking, which is that when it comes to dating, we put too much emphasis on finding people like us. That doesn't mean we literally look for people exactly like us, but that we put too much emphasis on finding people with the same hobbies, the same interests, and ideals as we have.
Agree to agree.
Now, that flies in the face of a lot of what we think we know about dating, right? We think it's about finding people who share lots of things with us, and then we're more likely to be compatible with them. The Gottmans disagree, and that's one of the reasons online dating algorithms can fail us so often. I mean, they don't fail in that they don't work. They do a great job of matching people based on the criteria that we determine are important to us. But maybe we're focusing on the wrong criteria. The problem is that in reality, a lot of this criteria doesn't actually make for a great match for us, as so many of us have discovered when we've actually met some of those people in person. We can't even necessarily tell who we'll really be attracted to from their photos.
You look like your profile pic, finally.
One of the reasons for that, says the Gottmans, is our genes. And we know this thanks to a bunch of sweaty German t-shirts.
What did you just say?
One Swiss researcher and his team took a group of 44 men and gave them nice, clean cotton t-shirts and asked them to wear them for 2 nights in a row while they were sleeping. They also asked the men to avoid things that would alter their smell artificially, like smoking, eating heavily spiced foods, wearing scented deodorants, and, well, sleeping with someone else.
You stink.
Here's where it gets really, really weird. I'm not even going to guess how the researchers came up with this idea. They put the worn t-shirts in identical boxes with a small hole in the boxes, then had 49 women come in and smell each of the boxes. You heard that right. The women came into a room and through the holes got a whiff of the t-shirts.
Sniff around.
Now, they didn't each smell all 44 shirts. Each woman was asked to smell 6 shirts and rate the shirts from 1 to 10 on intensity, pleasantness, and sexiness. Again, you heard that right, sexiness from smelling a t-shirt.
Smells good.
Now, the 6 shirts each woman got were specially selected to include 3 that were from men with a closer genetic match to them, and 3 from men who were less of a genetic match. Consistently, the women preferred the smells of the men who were less genetically matched. Remember, they had no information about the men, no photos, no personal details, only the smell of their t-shirts. Researchers theorize that these particular genes, which play a role in the development of our immune systems, help to keep us from being attracted to people who aren't genetically diverse enough from us, which could potentially negatively impact the health of our offspring. And the smell of a t-shirt and our genetic matchiness is the kind of information that even the highest tech online dating algorithm has not mastered if we don't give it the right information. Anyway, beyond our genes, I asked the Gottmans what we tend to get wrong when it comes to dating. They said that we often screen for things that don't really matter. When you meet someone you're truly compatible with on a deeper level, lots of those things don't actually matter. When I asked the Gottmans what does matter, they gave me a list of 8 things to look for, and here they are. Number 1, does the person listen to you? Do they show genuine interest in getting to know you? Do they ask you meaningful questions and really listen to the answer?
I'm listening.
Number 2, are they reliable and consistent? Or do they play games like playing hard to get? That's a big red flag.
That's a red flag.
Number 3, are they honest and sincere?
I would never lie to you.
Number 4, are they attentive? Is it clear that they consider your needs, desires, and feelings?
It's not all about you.
Number 5, are they kind or instead are they critical? Do they make biting, sarcastic remarks that just aren't funny?
That's not funny.
Number 6, are they generous?
Sharing is good.
Number 7, are they a person of substance and character, and are they respectful?
I do not respect you.
And 8, finally, does it feel good to be with them?
This feels so good.
So does that mean you should ditch the dating apps? I'm definitely not saying you should stop using apps, but instead, it may be helpful to shift what you're using them for. Helen Fisher is an anthropologist and the chief science officer for Match.com. She says we have the wrong idea about how Match and similar sites in that they are not dating sites, they are introduction sites. Entrepreneur Christina Wallace agrees. In a hilarious TED Talk where she discussed some of the perils she faced doing online dating before she finally met the one, Christina says that it's not the apps that are broken, it's our expectations of them. After countless dating fails, Christina decided to start going about her app use more strategically and set up a screening system for every message she received from a new potential match, where she would evaluate them for 3 criteria. Now remember, these were things that were important to Christina. Yours might be totally different. Number 1, the message had to be written in complete sentences with good grammar. Number 2, it had to reference something specific about her so she knew they weren't just cutting and pasting their messages. Number 3, the message could not contain anything sexual. Of 210 new messages Christina received, 14% met these criteria. For her next step, Christina decided she wanted to meet the guys quickly because, as she said, the things I cared about I couldn't see online. She was tired of going back and forth for days or weeks, exchanging long messages or committing to full dates only to find out they had no real chemistry or the guy only wanted sex. So Christina created what she called a 0 date, where the ground rules were that they would include just 1 drink over 1 hour, and in that time only 1 question she needed to answer for herself was, would I like to have dinner with this person? Would I like to spend 3 hours with them? If the 0 date went well, she'd see if they wanted to have a first date, then just go from there. I absolutely love this approach to not give an online dating app the full responsibility of matching you with the perfect person, but instead for just presenting you with a lot more options to choose from. From there, you can do what Christina did and come up with a few, not 19 or 20, basic screening criteria to see if you're interested in meeting them in person. That way you can immediately rule out people who don't meet your baseline, but you're less likely to disqualify a potential partner too soon over things that don't really matter. Are you looking for the one? Are you trying to find that big love of your lifetime and you feel like you've tried everything and looked everywhere? If so, this video is for you. The reality is there are so many ways we can end up finding our person. There isn't really a single solution for everyone, but I will tell you one big thing you need to stop doing if you want to find the one. And it's something most of us do. And I'll tell you 2 things to do instead. According to the US Census, 1 in 4 millennials speaks a language other than English at home. In California, it's 1 in 2. Regardless of what language they use at home, there's one word that millennials worldwide are speaking less than ever: marriage. According to the census, about 3 out of every 10 American millennials have ever been married. According to data from the Pew Research Center, younger adults are getting married at the rates 11 to 20% lower than the baby boomers and the silent generation. Look all around and there's no shortage of opinions as to why. Some say millennials are too broke to get married.
Too expensive.
Others say they're too busy building their careers or pursuing higher education.
I have more important things to do.
Then there's the idea that millennials just don't believe in marriage, that it's a broken system whose time has passed.
I don't believe in that sort of thing personally.
Yet according to data from Avo, an online legal marketplace, 82% of millennials surveyed disagreed with the statement that marriage was an outdated institution. And a study conducted by AccuView brand contact lenses found that 52% of respondents strongly agreed that marriage is important to them. Others say it's long-term commitment that matters to them, whether or not it involves marriage. I know from all of the messages and questions I get from you and from talking with my own single friends that most of us do put a committed relationship as one of our top priorities. And the reason so many of us haven't found the one is, well, we don't really know. That's a question I get so often. Jay, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do to find the big love of my life? And that's what we're talking about today. When it comes to dating and relationships, there's no shortage of advice, and a lot of it is conflicting. Should you be scientific and data-driven or dreamy? Do you need to take an approach that's organized or organic? The answer is both. I'll explain in a minute, but first, let's talk about the one thing that most of us get flat out wrong when it comes to finding the one. Here's what it is. We create an ideal picture of the perfect person. You're probably like, Jay, what? Isn't that exactly what we're supposed to do? Otherwise, isn't it like trying to find a town you've never been to before without using a map? Not so, says relationship expert Marla Madrone. Marla talks about that the biggest mistake we make in trying to find our ideal partner is that we look for our ideal partner. She explains that we create this detailed picture of who we want to be with. Then when we meet people, we fill in the gaps in what we know about them with our own projections, whether those are positive or negative. The problem, Marla says, is we're not really seeing and learning who the other person is. We're creating a perception of them based on a blend of our own prior experiences along with our needs and expectations. And they're doing this with us too. Rarely do we actually see each other for who we are, so we reject or embrace each other based mostly on inaccurate perceptions. So we're either alone and we're not sure why, or we're in a couples therapy trying to figure out who we are and re-engineer our relationships. I love this because it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, which is from sociologist Charles Horton Cooley. The quote is, "I'm not what I think I am, and I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am." As I write in my book, Think Like a Monk, our identities are wrapped up in what we think others think of us.
So, what do you think?
A common problem in many of our relationships is that we're method acting. We're relating to one another from these false places or these roles, not purposefully, but because we don't really know ourselves. Marla says that the way we stop doing this is know yourself. She says that cultivating self-awareness is the most powerful thing we can do to strengthen all of our relationships. It helps us build healthy boundaries, nurture open and honest communication, end toxic relationships, and yes, find the one. I really understand the value of self-awareness. When I trained as a monk, it was like a 3-year intensive on learning who you are. Self-awareness is so critical to everything we do, from creating fulfilling relationships and careers and families to just being happy and experiencing joy, meaning, and purpose on our own. I first met my wife Radhi before I ever became a monk. She was great, but I just wasn't in that place, and she wasn't in that place. And so while we enjoyed each other's company, there was no romantic connection. After I left the ashram and spent more time with Radhi, who'd become one of my sister's closest friends, I got to experience a different, broader version of her because my lens had changed. I was so much more self-aware, and I knew what was important to me, and also what wasn't important to me. And although I wasn't out on a flat-out search for the one at the time, I had that solid foundation in place, and so did she, so that we were both able to see and connect with each other as who we really are. And every day I can see how continuing to work on our own self-awareness strengthens our relationship with each other. Now that doesn't mean things are always perfect and easy, but that's one of the beautiful things about loving relationships. Ideally, we're with someone who we can continue to grow with and who we still learn new things about all the time. Psychotherapist and relationship expert Esther Perel says that novelty and newness is a key element to lifelong attraction. So when it comes to finding the one, how do we do it? Here are 2 steps. First, begin with you. Build that self-awareness. There are so many ways to do this, but here is a simple way to start. Figure out your love language. Some of you know Gary Chapman's 5 love languages.
Remind me again what that is?
The 5 love languages are words of affirmation, acts of service, giving gifts, physical touch, or quality time. Then, as much as possible, speak this love language to yourself. As I write in my book, so many of our problems occur when we expect another person to fulfill all of our needs and to be everything to us.
It's all about me.
As Marla says, we're actually capable of meeting far more of our own needs than we give ourselves credit for. And when we learn to deeply love and support ourselves, we have more fulfilling relationships because we can freely and gratefully receive what others are willing and able to provide. We can love them for who they really are, and we can be loved for who we really are. So start by identifying, then speaking your own love language to yourself. Tell yourself you look great. Have you been working out? Or take a nice hot bath. Buy yourself a gift you'd love.
I'm gonna buy a house.
Or schedule some quality solitude time to be in relationship with yourself. Hey, it's fine to have a list of what's important to you and what you're looking for. And in fact, that is a good thing when it comes to deep core values or goals, such as whether you want kids, whether the other person treats you with respect and is genuinely interested in learning who you are, and whether you truly enjoy spending time with them. Remember those statistics I gave earlier about how millennials aren't getting married? Well, that's only part of the picture. As anthropologist Helen Fisher says, the majority of younger people today are practicing what she calls slow love. They're not just getting married. They're waiting to get married so they can be more sure of their choice. Today, Fisher says 86% of Americans will marry by age 49. And around the world, people are still far more likely than not to settle down with a long-term partner. And the good news is that those couples are more likely to stay together. So that's the second step. Practice slow love. Really let yourself get to know people. We struggle with ambiguity. Is this person the one or are they not? And am I running out of time? Sometimes a match or no match is evident pretty quickly, but in most cases, it takes time. But knowing yourself and then really getting to know the other person for who they truly are is the perfect 1-2 combo for finding real, lasting, long-term love. The first time I actually met Radhi was before I became a monk. And I met her very briefly. I thought she was beautiful and attractive, but I didn't really think anything of it. Like I genuinely just was so focused on what I was doing at life at that time, and I was so spiritually inclined and spiritually focused that I literally didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, and my mum introduced me to you.
Yes, so I should tell that story.
Yeah.
So actually, I met Radhi's mum even before I met her.
Yeah.
And so I was training to become a monk, and I met Radhi's mum, and I was asked to show her how to do a particular service at the temple. So I had to take her around, etc. Now, the incredible thing about this is that is the only time
you ever
while I was there that I was ever asked to show another person how to do this service. So the one day that I had to show someone how to do this particular service, this voluntary service at the temple, was the one day that her mom turned up. And at that time, I didn't know she had a daughter. I didn't know anything about this lady. I was like, oh, she's around my mom's age.
Yeah.
And she was wonderful, and we got along, but I was just showing her what to do, and then literally didn't speak to her.
No. And then my mum wanted me to get more involved in, and I really wanted to get more involved in like the spiritual side of my life. And so she met him and wanted me to get introduced to the youth community there. And so she passed on my number to you, but you passed it on to your sister.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I passed it on to my sister. I was like, no, I need to stay focused, do my thing. And my sister's very spiritually inclined too. Big shout out to Amy. And then you guys got connected and you became friends.
Yeah, and actually at that point, my mum had said to me, oh, I met this really nice guy at the temple. And she was like to me, oh, after I met him, I prayed. And I was like, oh, I hope my daughter meets somebody like this. I know he's going to be a monk, but I hope she meets someone that's like this because he seems really nice. Little did he know what was going to happen. And then what happened? He became a monk. Mm-hmm. I heard you speak. Oh, I heard him speak all the time because he used to do lots of youth programs or university talks. And so,
sessions on philosophy, meditation.
Yeah, philosophy, meditation. And I was just like, oh my gosh, he's such an incredible speaker. And the way that he makes such incredible wisdom so relevant to us who are like young teenagers or not young teenagers.
You weren't a teenager.
I was a teenager. I was still a teenager.
No, you weren't.
18?
No, you weren't.
No way. How old was I?
One thing you're going to realize throughout this whole interview is that I'm the one who remembers all the dates. I'm the one who remembers everything.
Yeah, I don't remember anything. I barely remember things that happened like 2 years ago. So no, I wasn't a teenager. I was out of university, which feels like a long time ago. So I was in my 20s and I saw him speak and I just thought it was so incredible how he was able to articulate such deep wisdom in a way that was so relevant to people who were so young and probably wouldn't have been so interested in reading a book about it. And so I was in awe of him, and he also looked really cool. He had like a bald head. He didn't look like the type of person who was going to be speaking about these things. He had like tattoos and a bald head, but then he was in robes. And I was like, this is really, really cool, but weird at the same time.
You're so strange.
Yeah.
And then when I left being a monk, which is a whole story in itself, we can talk about that another day. When I left being a monk, her and my sister were really, really close.
Yeah.
And me and my sister are really, really close. I trust my sister. She's one of my best friends. And I sat down with her one day and she said, well, you know what? Radhi likes someone. And I was just like, oh, who? And I was thinking she was going to say some other person's name. And she's like, she really likes you. And I was like, oh, I really like her. Like, I'd love to get to know her better. And we'd interacted. We'd got to know each other a bit better because we'd organized charity events together, etc. And so I'd seen her not in the role of being a girlfriend, obviously, or someone that I was dating. I'd seen her interact with other people, other humans, inside a project management organization, organizing events. So I'd seen her personality and like observed how she behaved around certain people, how she had talked to people, how she interacted with people. And based on all those things, I thought she was a great person. So when my sister told me that, I was secretly quite happy as well.
And I always heard about him through his sister, and his sister would talk about him with so much love and affection, and he treats her like she's his baby. No matter how old she gets, she's literally like his baby. And I used to see like conversations between them. I used to be like, oh my gosh, he's so sweet. Like, he's so sweet, even though he's gone off being a monk, but he was still really, really caring and loving towards his sister and his family. And then, I had told her that I liked him before he knew about it, or before you'd probably even thought about it.
Yeah. So then that was it, really. That's how we met. We almost met before I became a monk.
We hadn't really had conversations,
etc. Never had conversations, never spoke, but had just seen each other in our own elements.
Yeah.
And then when I left being a monk, later that year, we started going out. And so that was around towards the end of 2013.
And then it just went really fast. We both kind of, as soon as we spoke about it, we both knew that we wanted to be with each other, and we were really certain about it. And it could have gone really wrong, but we were like, we could have both been really crazy, but it ended up just working out. We both really had kind of understood each other just by observing one another, I guess. And there were a few surprises, I'm sure, but we got along straight away, and we were both pretty much went from, I really like you, to, I love you, in like a day. And then it was like, we want to get married in like a week. As in, we didn't get married in a week, but we said we wanted to get married eventually in a week after that. And then we ended up spending a lot of time at each other's homes, right? He was spending a lot of time at my house for ages. That's pretty much where I took him to have all of our dates, because I loved being around my family, and I was like, best of both worlds. I can be around the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, and the people that I've spent most of my life with. And so, most of our dates would involve my parents and my sister and my brother-in-law at the time. And so we got to know each other kind of in our own environments as well, really fast, which I think helped us fast forward a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I remember that my sister gave me like an action plan. She's like, this is what you're going to get along on. This is what you're going to struggle with. These are going to be your challenges. And I definitely owe it to her to bring us together. Like, I think she was a huge part of us being together, my sister, definitely. And she was like, because she knows me so well, and I feel she got to know you well as well. She was just like, this is what you guys are going to agree on. This is what you're not going to agree on. And it was so nice to have that.
Yeah.
Because you could go into a relationship having more understanding of the other person.
Can I just say, one of the things she said that we wouldn't get along on is Bollywood, because I loved Bollywood songs and films at the time. But you like a good Bollywood song?
Questionable.
Once in a while.
Questionable. But I decided to get over that.
Yeah.
And you barely. You've got to go over it.
Still have a love for it.
But we spent a lot of time at each other's parents' homes and with our families, which was great because you had to be yourself. I used to love what your mum used to tell you.
My mum was so funny. So obviously, like, it was a person to her that was, we were dating, and so usually you would put in a lot of effort in the way that you dress and doing your hair when the person you're dating comes over. But yeah, I would literally be in the same clothes that I was wearing like the whole day, which was pretty much like pajama bottoms and a really scruffy top. And my mum would be like, do you not want to maybe, put a different top on, or you don't want to change your trousers? I was like, no, Mum, if he can't love me in what I'm wearing right now, which is what he's probably going to see me in for the rest of his life, then it's just not meant to be. Okay, he has to love me for. And she'd be like, okay, but you could try, a little bit. I was like, no. And it worked, so.
And she's so beautiful and cute. Like, even when she's dressed all hobo chic, I'm just like, I love it, And it's quite nice, actually. Like, I genuinely believe this. Like, I've rarely see her with makeup on.
Yes.
And so, like, it's fun when you fall in love with someone based on who they are and their personality and their energy, and all of that beauty shines through. So, yeah, I love it. So that leads us nicely on to the next point that our friends wanted to discuss, which is, what's the key to starting off a relationship well?
What's the key to
What's the key to starting it off well? So one thing for me was this, that because we didn't see each other in dating environments a lot, I feel like dating environments put this pressure of being in an interview. So I compare dates to interviews. It's almost like you have to put your best foot forward. You wear your best clothes. You try and say all the best things. And even if it's not the best, actually, it's us trying to be right. And that's what we do in interviews. When you go and interview for a job, it's like you want to be the right fit
for that person.
Yeah, and that's what happens in a dating scenario. Like, you're sitting opposite a desk just like you do in an interview, and then someone's asking you a question and you're like, okay, well, what do I have to say to make them like me or to say the right thing? Whereas we didn't really get to do that.
No.
And I'm not saying that was a conscious choice, but now when I look back at it and I reflect on it and introspect on it, I'm like, we didn't really get an opportunity to date in that sense. And that means that I got exposed to the real her either by seeing her in a charity organization, seeing her in a real life scenario, how does she treat normal people, and then how she is with her family. And I'm like, that's the best view you can get of someone. And so when I look at that in terms of giving advice or tips or whatever, my recommendation is be around people that you're thinking about being with in an environment where they're just being themselves.
Yeah.
Because chances are, if you like them the way they are when they are with other people, then you're likely to love them when they're with you too. And so often we only see people that we are considering being romantic with or dating with, etc. We only see them in dates and dinners and movie nights and whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like you see, and also seeing people with the people that they're closest to, because you can't really fake it with the people that you're closest to. I mean, and if you can, you could do it for a really short period of time. And you also end up seeing them being probably at their worst and at their best, because you can be the most loving to your family, but you can also be the worst person towards your family because they're the ones that accept it. And so, yeah, I feel like you get a good image of who the person is through interacting with them that way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good point.
Thanks.
Nicely said.
It's true, yeah. And the other thing is, so when we first got together, I'd left being a monk probably like 7 months before. So it'd been like a 7-month gap. And I didn't have a job. I had no job. I had no money.
No.
I was getting rejected left, right, and center from every single place that I was applying to because I'd been a monk for 3 years and no one wanted to hire someone who had monk written on their resume. Like, no one's like, oh yeah, I would love your transferable skills. Like, like, what do you know? And so, oh, you can meditate for 4 hours. Great, we need that in our organization. So it was just, I had nothing really.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to start dating someone because I remember I used to save up. So I used to like try and work part-time and I was doing everything I could.
You were tutoring.
I was tutoring. So I would be tutoring young people for their exams or university exams, etc. And I would be making like, £15 an hour or whatever it was. And I remember I'd save up so I could take her out on a date at the end of the month and so that we could do something fun. And I loved that because I met her at a time when I had nothing and she accepted me for it.
Yeah.
And I love her for that. And also her parents were always really cool about it. So sometimes that can be a big pressure from parents and expectations, but her parents were really cool about it. They never made me feel uncomfortable about it or anything. And my parents obviously were very comfortable with me. They were just like, follow your heart, do what's right for you. Very, very encouraging. And I don't come from a well-off background at all or anything. So it's not that I had a backup plan, but my parents were still very, very encouraging and supportive.
Yeah, that was never in my mind, to be honest. I knew I wanted to be with you, and so I was like to my mum, even if we end up living in a really tiny house, just by like near the temple that I used to go to, and just I know that I want to spend my life with him. So whatever it ends up being, and you were really, really enthusiastic, and you had so much purpose, and even from the beginning, like you were so driven to do whatever you wanted to do. I didn't know what that was at the time, but you were so driven that I just knew whatever it was, whatever we were meant to be was what was going to happen. And I knew you were always like going to be there to take care of me, and I felt that from the beginning. Like I always felt supported. You want to hold hands? Yeah, I'm not good at PDA, so I'm going to not do that.
Oh my God, just been rejected on camera.
There you go. Yeah, so that was it was really nice, and I feel like he had a lot of the qualities that I always felt. I would always grow up saying, oh, I really want a husband that was like my dad. Like I love my dad, and he was always someone that I felt very protected and supported by. And so I definitely, now looking back at it, I felt those qualities in him as I got to know him. And so I thought, yeah, that was nice. And my parents didn't carry that. I always thought it would be, you always think in Indian families that's going to be an issue. But they loved him from the start. He's got really good, I don't know whether you guys have noticed, but he's got a really good way of saying things and winning people over by his words. So
it's real though.
I know, that's why it's genuine and it's sweet. So from those interactions, I think my parents trusted him very easily as well.
Yeah, I really get along with your parents.
I know. Yeah, and it was so great for me because Amy was already like my sister, and me and your mum got along straight away because we bonded over food. And so yeah, it was really easy for us both to join into each family.
But yeah, another thing I think that's really important at the start of a relationship is self-awareness and setting expectations. So I feel that having done the work as a monk and having been through that experience myself, I'd gained so much self-awareness. So I was really aware of what type of partner I needed in my life. I was really aware of what I needed in my life to flourish, to thrive. And so when I met someone, it was very easy for me. It was very easy and simple for me to communicate my expectations to her and be like, I remember one of the things I said, and this is not offensive at all, it's genuinely how I felt at the time. And I said that if you want a husband who goes to IKEA on the weekends and to the cinema, like I'm not that guy. And I didn't mean that as a bad thing if anyone is that. What I meant that as is I want to be someone who lives their lives of purpose, and I want my life to be about service, and I want my life to have an impact on people's lives. And I need a partner that's going to understand that, embrace that, and roll with that as well, and wants to live not a normal life, because that wasn't going to work for me if I really wanted to have an impact, if I really wanted to make a difference, if I really wanted to serve. And so that wasn't an ego thing. It wasn't me thinking I'm better or above or special. It was me saying, this is a priority for me, and I don't need it to be your priority, but I need you to understand it to be mine. And I think this is really important, that we should feel that if we're genuinely committed to something, when you make someone aware, and same back from her side too, like when she'll share hers, but when she's made me aware of what her priorities are and what's important to her, you start respecting what's important to the other person rather than expecting them to trade theirs, right? And that's usually what happens in relationships in the beginning is, instead of showing respect for the other people's passion, you expect them to change their passion for yours or compromise and be excited about your stuff. And I don't think that that's the right way. I think it's us being clear about ourselves, communicating that, and then respecting what the other person communicates.
And I think we discussed that really early on, actually.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
just to be clear, he has come to IKEA with me on the weekends.
And movies too.
Yeah, movies too. But yeah, no, I understood the point of it. And I remember at that time when he was really pushing for what he wanted to do, he was very, very busy. And so there were certain things, I mean, he spent a lot of time with me and my family, but we had just agreed that, look, if there was extended things that I had to go to, because with families, there's always other things that you have to go to, like family, friends, or relatives' houses for every event possible. And if that happened, then I knew that I was okay with him not coming to them. And I said that to him from the beginning.
You're
that
amazing as well for that.
if you need to go and do something which is, I know for you, more important, not because for the purpose that you want to live, then I totally understand that comes above you just coming to another party, which people are not probably going to remember. Like it's okay. And I think that was actually really important for us, because you can always hear what other people say, like family members or friends or whatever will always have a different opinion. And so as long as you feel like you have discussed it and you really understand that person's point of view, then you don't feel it doesn't rub off on you when people say things because you understand it deeply. Whereas if you don't, then I think it's really easy to get swayed by other people's view of life or other people's way of relationships or whatever it is. Like that can rub off on you very easily. But if you really understand that person and why they're doing it, I think that can make a big difference to you supporting them in why they're doing it.
Thank you. The first question that I have from our team is, what do you find hardest about love?
I was actually thinking about this morning when I was thinking about coming and speaking here. Coming and speaking to you. And I was thinking about how, a lot of the time when you end up feeling annoyed at your partner or irritated in some way, or when they really annoy you, no, I'm just it actually made me realize that a lot of the time, they say it ends up being a reflection of you. And I think a lot of, when I think about what ends up, like when we have our petty arguments or whatever it is, I feel like it's actually because it hits at a sore point of me realizing that it's my, whatever we're arguing about, how I'm reacting, it's my weakness. And a lot of the time that's stubbornness. And so I feel like whenever I think that's quite a difficult thing when it comes to relationships or love, is that the other person, because you spend so much time with them and because, they know you better than anybody else, that they end up being a reflection of actually you. So every time you end up having interactions with them that aren't that great, actually a lot of the time you can sit there and be like, maybe that had a lot more to do with me, how I reacted rather than that other person. But sometimes it's them too.
That's a really good answer. That's a really good answer. I think that's such a good point. I think what I'm saying is I would second that. And to give a different answer, I also feel the hardest thing in a relationship is you're always projecting your strengths onto the other person's weaknesses. So you want the other person to be more like you, but when you really think about it, you don't. Like you love the other person for not being like you. But when you say things like, I'll give an example that I'm super organized, disciplined, live by the schedule, on time.
So am I.
And at times in our relationship, I've wanted you to become like that and do things like me. Mm-hmm. And when I've really sat with that and really thought with that, I realized actually I don't want you to be like me because I love you for not being me.
Yeah.
And the things that you bring to this relationship, whether it's spontaneity, whether it's being fresh, whether it's being always alive, that's the strength. And I think what we do in relationships is we dampen our partner's strengths instead of amplifying them.
Yeah.
And what that does is it makes your partner feel like they have to do something different or be something different. But actually, if you amplify their strengths, which is the part you love anyway, you're going to have a much more fulfilling and exciting relationship. So I think that I find that hard because I think we all live in our heads.
Yeah, it's so true.
And we think the way we think is the right way.
I'm like, hey, what do you want to do tomorrow? And you're like, well, I kind of have a 9 to 5, 6 schedule ready to go for the next 6 months. And I'm like, oh, so you don't want to go shopping with me, or you don't want to go to get some plants? And I agree. And I feel like but I also think from that, it also helps. Even if you're not doing, even if you feel like it's a negative thing, to notice that and to try and correct it. In the same way, I think it can also help the other person tighten up on that area of their life too. Like, okay, cool, you may be super organized and I may be not very organized at all, but at the same time we can find a good middle ground when we're together, where it's like, okay, that I like being spontaneous, so maybe randomly you'll be like, okay, cool, which you do, you're like, oh, I'll just cancel my meeting, or I won't do this and let's just go do this. And for me, I'm like, oh, okay. And I know that I try to be a little bit more organized, where I'm like, oh, okay, I need to make sure I do this today. I need to make sure I give you this today, whatever it is, trying to make that better as well. Because even though it's a strength in some ways, every strength ends up being a weakness in some way too. So I think it helps, kind of balance it out as well, and help the other person notice when they need to probably change a little bit.
Absolutely. Okay, second question is, how did your relationship change in 2020?
How did it change? I kind of feel like this felt like our first year of marriage, because we we have not spent this much time together in a whole entire relationship. And so I kind of feel like, for me, it felt like we were on honeymoon type feel where we just got married and we were learning so much more about each other. But then we ended up, just really understanding one another and settling into each other a lot better than we probably even have for the past, how many years have we been married? Like 3 years? 4 years?
We've nearly been married 5 years.
Nearly 5 years, but it feels like 1 year. But yeah, no, I think it really made us, it really helped us understand each other better. It helped us get into a rhythm together, which I don't feel like we ever really had a rhythm together. And so I think it's actually changed in most, I can't think of any ways that it's changed in a negative way. I really think that it's improved our relationship through figuring a lot of stuff out, but it's definitely got to a point now where I'm like, oh wow, that whole year was definitely a good jump or a good step up for us.
Yeah, I'd have to say one of my favorite things was, it was the first year where we started doing a lot of physical activity together because we always go on like travel together or something like that. But it was the first year we started actually working out and exercising together.
Yeah.
So we used to go on hikes up Griffiths Park and then Runyon and then we'd go on walks and just so many opportunities to be in nature together because we weren't going to the gym. And then we were doing in-home workouts together with a virtual workout.
Yeah.
And we'd put our playlist on with that song that you were talking about the other day.
Don't Rush. That's the song of 2020 for me.
And I just think that we were forced to just spend so much time together, but we actually found ways to do things we enjoyed together.
I think we actually realized that we were spending time together in the wrong ways before. Like, I feel like that's what it made us realize, that we thought going shopping together or going to watch a movie together was like, and sitting and watching a movie together were the ways that we would be spending time together. And then we realized that actually we just really enjoy doing, whether it's like normal things like working out, but it feels so much more fun for us than sitting there and doing something that I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, like something that where we're not talking or we're not interacting, and the focus is somewhere else. Whereas this, it's like you're completely focused on the activity, completely focused on the other person. And it was just so much more fun to do that stuff together, even if it is just like working out and or going for a walk or whatever it is. But it felt so much more interactive and so much more fun.
Yeah. And for everyone who's listening and watching, this was the year that Radhi and I have spent the most actual time together since we've been married.
Yeah.
And since we were dating, because I'm always traveling. She's back at home in London sometimes. She's traveling. And for us to be in this space together, we had to focus on learning about each other even more. So it was a big change for us.
Yeah.
And like Radhi said, I think the same. I think it just brought about positives for us, thankfully. And you know, we grew a lot closer this year, I think.
Yeah. And I do think it's also because I don't feel like it felt natural, but at the same time it was natural because we were both very aware and intentional of how we were interacting with the other person. Because of how bad it's gone in the past, I feel like we have been able to use all of those mistakes that we made where we were really trying to figure out a way for it to be better. Like we both had the intention of making it better, whether it was like quarantine, whether it was COVID, whatever it was, that like I feel like we'd gone through so many times where we tried and it may be like we still weren't understanding each other, where we're like, no, this time we both actually really want to intentionally make an effort to have conversations that we maybe don't have, to resolve things in a way that we don't normally resolve things. And so yeah, I think that's also important, because it wasn't just like, oh, this was nice, like it just happened this way. I feel like it was definitely something we thought about and tried as well. I'll do a question for you.
Go on.
I was thinking about this earlier too, and I was going to ask you separately, but I thought, why not ask you on here, put you on the spot? What is, okay, for example, you know, in a relationship when one person asks the other person to do something, I always think about this with you, because you always, regardless of when I ask you to do something, no matter if you're let's say something simple, we're both sitting watching something and I'm literally to you, oh, I really want this. And I haven't even asked you to do it, but you'll literally get up and you'll go and do it for me. Or I'll ask you to go get something and you won't even flinch, you'll go out of your way to do it. And actually I was thinking about it, and that seems like such a small thing, But I actually feel like it's not, because a lot of the time where even if it's with your mum, your dad, whatever, it's just, oh, do I really have to go and get it? Like, can't you just go do it yourself? But you, I feel, have generally always been like that. And so I was just going to ask you, because I think it'll be helpful for other people too and helpful for me, like what goes through your mind when, even if I'm being really irritating or being a brat, like what makes you just continually do that without like moaning?
The first thing that goes through my mind is, you are such a brat.
Yeah.
you are closer to that light switch right now. You are closer to the water container right now.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me to do this? That's the first thing that goes through my mind.
Yes. Fair.
And then my monk mind comes in, and there's two sides to it. First of all, I know you're not asking me because you're trying to make my life difficult. You're doing it because you want to be loved that way. and
Maybe, yeah.
And I think that when you realize, if you're in a loving, trusting relationship, you start realizing that your partner's requests, even if they seem unreasonable and irrational, a lot of the time, that's just how you want to be loved in that moment. And when you see it in that way, you go, yeah, of course I want to love you in that way. Because you're not doing it to hurt me, because I know you love me. You're not doing it to upset me. You're obviously not doing it to irritate me.
Mm-hmm.
So then the only reason you could be doing that is because you need some love right now. And you need love in that way, or you need connection in that way, or you need intimacy in that way. And so you're asking for it because it's a request for love. And I think we think of requests for love as like, oh, give me a hug, or I need to talk to you. We think of those things, but actually it's the day-to-day moments in the small things where someone's saying, please love me, please see me, please show up for me.
Please bring me a snack.
Please bring me a snack. And I think we mistake that language because we think, oh, that person's being so irritable.
So demanding.
So demanding. And maybe they are. And that's something that you have to check for yourself.
True.
So if you are that person, Radhi, then you have to check for yourself whether it is demanding and stubborn or whether it is a request for love.
Yeah.
For yourself. But I've made it in my mind that I believe you love me. And so if I believe you love me, then I should believe that this is you asking for love. And so, but if I didn't believe you love me and I was
then
insecure about that, then it would be really annoying. Yeah. And so it doesn't mean that I don't have that thought. It doesn't mean that I don't get internally frustrated with you for a second. And then straight after that, this kicks in and that walks me through it. And I think when people sometimes say to me like, oh, well, haven't you got it all figured out? I'm like, no, the first thought is never the thought that has it all figured out. The first thought is always, oh gosh, whatever.
Yeah.
It's the second thought.
It's taking that time to have that second thought rather than reacting to the first.
Yeah. So that's the answer to that
Deep.
question.
That's great. Thank you. I've always wondered that. I have actually.
So this question came in from our team. It says, tell me about a time where you think we've made a compromise and how did it work out? I'm going to go first.
I know the first thing you're going to say is, I don't believe in compromises in relationships.
You know me so well. So
Please
that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, as soon as I hear the word compromise, I have a very interesting relationship with the word compromise because I believe that compromise makes you feel that both of you are giving up something you want for something you both don't want.
Oh, yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense to me.
Repeat that. Rewind. That's a good point. Go on. Have a Jay Shetty moment.
So I have a really interesting relationship with the word compromise because I don't understand what compromise means is that you're both giving up something you both want for something both of you don't want. That's what a compromise is. So it feels like one person is getting what they want and the other person is not getting what they want. That's what a compromise is. Whereas what I have tried to live by in our relationship is I want you to get what you want and I want to get what I want. Now, if that doesn't mesh all the time or if that doesn't connect all the time, then the only thing that's being compromised is this false view that we should always feel the same way about everything. And I think that just makes that actually makes space for resentment. It makes space for bitterness. It's almost like, think about this, everyone who's listening and watching, think about this for a moment. Imagine I gave up what I wanted to do all the time to be where Radhi wanted me to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be feeling upset. I'm going to be thinking I should be doing this or I could be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you develop bitterness towards the other person where you can't even respect and appreciate them. And if you were always dragged to what I'm doing, you may be thinking, well, I could be doing this or I could be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And what ends up happening is I feel like you actually move closer away by forcing yourself together.
Wait, say that again.
You actually end up moving further away. You actually end up moving further away by forcing yourself to be together.
Yes.
When actually you could move closer together by allowing yourselves to have that space.
I agree.
So that's my relationship with the word compromise.
We've both been very happy for the other person to live freely, to do what they want to do, and without pressure of being like, okay, cool, it's my friend's birthday, for example. And if you're not that interested in coming, or I'm not that interested in coming with you, it's not like, oh my gosh, but you have to come. Like, we're a couple, we can't go places without one another. Like, we're just like, okay, cool. Like, you don't need to go. And we understand that too. It's like, yeah, it's going to be boring for you. Like, you don't need to come with me. And we're very good at making it quite clear if something is important to us, whether it's family stuff, whether it's whatever. Say, okay, cool, you don't need to come to this family thing, but I would really appreciate it if you could make some time and come here. And so I think it's also that where it doesn't feel like a compromise if you know that it's the same thing as what you were saying about the bringing me water or snacks. It's like, you know that the person loves you. And so if you make it explicitly clear what's valuable to you and you still don't feel heard by them, then that's one thing. But like, if I know that you love me and you know what's important to me, I feel like you always know when you need to show up. And if, for example, you haven't, and I may not have communicated it to you, if I tell you afterwards, it's always like, oh, I'm so sorry, I had no idea that's how you felt. And so, yeah, I think it's important, one, like, letting the other person know what is of value to you and whether it's actually that important. Not being like, oh, come with me, and the person says no, and then you're like, oh, okay, fine. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be oh, but please, I like, this is really important to me. So it's communicating and letting you know about that. And also, yeah, understanding that the other person loves you, and that if they are saying no, it's not because they're trying to hurt you. It's because they maybe genuinely have something that's more important to go to or to do.
Yeah. And I think you're right that's a really good point, because you expect the other person to read your mind and to know why it should be important to you. And we often have that thought, like, you should know this is important to me. But the truth is that in every relationship, like, no one knows until you explain to them. And I think in our love relationships, in our romantic, even in our friendships, we just expect everyone to fully know what we value.
Yeah, it's like even with family, for example, just if someone is really close to their family, you expect in your mind that they realize that that's an important thing. But if, for example, that person is not that close to their family, in their mind, it's like, oh, it's my uncle's birthday. Come to my uncle's birthday, and you're like, I won't even go to my own, not you, but generally someone else might be like, oh, I won't even go to my own uncle's birthday because I'm not that close to them. So I think it's like, you are expecting the other person to live how you live and how you have your relationships or how you value things. And it's an unfair expectation because people have been through so many different things in life.
Awesome. All right. Next question on the list.
Next up
is, we both have such hectic schedules in life and lots of work going on all our commitments. How do we find time to spend time alone and time with each other?
I get asked that a lot, actually. I have so many,
really?
some of my family members always like, but does he have time to spend with you? Like, do you guys have time? I was speaking to one of my family friends the other day, and she was just like, are you sure you guys spend time with each other? And I was like, yeah, we spend a lot of time together, but I can understand why people may think that. But yeah, you know, I don't feel like we've ever really felt, I feel like even if we've had the moments where we've had like months apart, we do make an effort that when we are together, especially recently within the past year or 2 years, would you say? You say 2 years? We've started doing a thing where we make sure that we have at least a weekend that we spend solid together. And sometimes that's more time that you spend together, even if you were seeing someone every single day for like a month, because it's condensed time, it's intentional. And it's with the sole purpose to spend time together and communicate and be together in a meaningful way. So yeah, we definitely make that time. But it's also because we choose to do that.
Yeah, I think we both thankfully gravitate towards quality time versus quantity of time. And so we'll both be like, well, if we're both tired today, we'd rather not force ourselves to try and spend time together and give each other space or give each other time to decompress. And this weekend, we'll make sure we spend time together, rather than the artificial force of like, today we had to spend time together because we promised or we said we would. And it's like, but maybe we're both not got the right energy right now. Or we haven't got that presence right now. And so I think it's a mutual understanding. At the same time, I feel like, you know, there've been different parts in our relationship. Like I remember when we lived in New York, we probably didn't spend a lot of quality time together because the only time I had off was the weekends, and I was busy working sometimes too. And you were doing all your courses and your work on the weekends. And so I spent a ton of my weekends alone, and you spent a ton of your weekdays alone. And if you think back, that's literally was the pattern of our life for 2 years. And then there was travel to London and everywhere else I was going. And I think through all of that, it was always just about savoring those moments. It was about really cherishing and realizing that we were in a building phase. And so I want to address something here actually that I think will be really interesting for people is I talk a lot about like the 5 cycles of life that we all go through. So we have learn, experiment, perform, struggle, thrive. And so these like different stages you go through every year. And when we were in New York, we were in a build phase of our life. Like we were both building. We just got married. I'd literally just started my career. You were discovering your career. We were in a build phase. And I think when you expect a lot from your partner, when you're both building, it can be really demanding. But now we're at a stage in our life where certain things we're performing in, where I've got a bit of a rhythm and a role. And so I'm able to give more time and you're in this different stage in your life. And I feel like when you start looking at your life as stages, as opposed to like everything
this is how it's going to be forever.
It's like, it can't be that way. And there's actually a really good book on this by Gary Chapman. And I think it's called The 4 Seasons of Love or The 4 Seasons of Marriage or Relationships. Cool. And it talks about how is your relationship right now in the season of summer, winter, spring, or autumn? Now, when I think about this, I think that all of us want our relationship to always be in summer.
I mean, I like winter, but...
Well, you just ruined it.
You ruined it. Go along with it.
Yeah. We always want our relationship to be in summer in the sense that it's hot, it's passionate, it's cool. It's like everything's good about summer, right? We all look forward to summer. But maybe your relationship's at a point in life right now, as this book says, that your relationship might be in winter. It's going for a dark period, a cold period where you just got to stick it out together. When I think about New York, when I think about us in New York, it was a bit of winter and spring. Like it was a bit of winter and spring, and autumn's like where you got to let go and you got to shed. And I think about when we first started dating, there were moments where our relationship was in autumn, where we were just letting things go and purging and removing energy. I know when you were going to yoga classes and your yoga teacher training. So I think that book's a great model, and that reflection that I've had for a while, that your life goes through stages and seasons, and stop trying to make every day and every week summer.
I really love that. That's so cool. What a great book.
I had a reflection. I started researching and then I found the book. And the way I was thinking about it is like, if you know it's winter, you take an umbrella out. If you know it's winter, you put a coat on. But if you think it's summer, you keep expecting your partner to, Anyway, so this is an interesting question. What film or TV show do you think offers the best example of a healthy relationship?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I automatically in my mind go to This Is Us, because it's one of my favorite shows ever.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it, but it's so good. And
we love Chrissy, our good friend.
Love Chrissy. But there are actually really lovely examples of couples who like make it through stuff in that, whether it's like the main couple. I'm sure, to be honest, most people have probably seen it. You're just the odd one out. But the main mum and dad, and then there's Sterling. What's his name? Sterling Brown. Sterling. The actor?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's in something Sterling or Sterling something. You'll know who I mean. But their relationship is amazing because they go through so many ups and downs, but they're so good at communication. And I feel like that's a very good show to show very different types of relationships. Even Chrissy's relationship with her partner, her husband on the show, they're all so different in relationships and the way they communicate, but they show very good, very realistic and useful relationships, I feel.
Yeah.
I love that show. It's so good.
I actually struggle with this question because I think, I don't watch a lot of TV shows, but I do watch a lot of movies. And I think growing up, I had a really unhealthy view of love because of movies.
It's so true.
So I grew up watching Bollywood movies a lot. And I remember thinking that that's what love had to look like.
Yeah, like a flower comes up in the middle when two people are about to kiss. That's what they do in Bollywood.
Or like you're all like dancing around and like there's all this like...
in a field
there's
of
all this,
puppies.
And like music's playing when you fall in love with someone.
And I'm running towards you in slow motion and my hair naturally falls like this.
Yeah.
And you're coming towards me and then it cuts because they don't show anything else in Bollywood films back in the day.
And so that's what I grew up with unhealthy projections of love.
Yeah.
And the thing that comes to mind when I am thinking about this, apart from the Last Dance Michael Jordan documentary, which doesn't show marriage, but shows like love in a team and camaraderie and collaboration, I'll try and find a bit more of I actually think The Happy Place, The Good Place. Sorry, The Good Place. I always call it The Happy Place. Kristen Bell's character, Eleanor, and her relationship with Chidi, like the way it shows relationship dynamics is really interesting. About like what is a good relationship, what is support, what is friendship. Like I think it answers a lot of deeper questions.
Yeah, and that is such a good show.
It's such a great show. I'm enjoying it so much, and we came to it late, but we're loving it.
Yeah.
And I just think it has so many good messages, so I'd have to go with that.
Okay, cool. This Is Us and Happy Place.
Yeah.
No, was it?
The Good Place.
Good
The Good Place, yeah. I call it The Happy Place all the time as well. And I'm going back to what the shows I grew up on. I grew up on the OC and Desperate Housewives. Both not good examples of relationship ideas. And Friends you grew up on, which again, I
wouldn't say it's like the best relationship stuff. It's just comedy but I agree with movies. It's for girls and for guys, I guess. I didn't think that it was such a big thing for guys because growing up, I always think guys just like aren't thinking about like romance in that stage of their life. But for girls, I think for sure, you're just always seeing how like the girl's like the damsel in distress and the guy like saves her. And I think it's, movies mess you up.
Okay, this is an interesting question. Have you ever experienced doubt in our relationship? And how do you express doubt?
I guess maybe like right at the beginning when I'm trying to think. Yeah. I'm sure I did right at the beginning and then like, just before you're getting married and like everything's like a bit confusing and there's just so much going on because of wedding and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get married to this man. No,
really? As in, no, seriously, I want to know.
Yeah, I think probably just at the beginning when everything was so up in the air because like, as I'm sure in most cultures, but in our cultures, like the man should have a job and the man should be the breadwinner and like
which is not true.
You should have which is not true. And he should have everything figured out before you get into a relationship with that person. Like everything should already be set before you even think about marriage. And we really didn't have that. And so I think probably at the beginning, but I was so lucky because my mum and dad really were just so okay that I naturally feel doubts can come into your mind when other people get in your mind. But I think I was quite sure. I felt like straight away, I knew I had a connection with you. I knew that your values and the person that you were, I just knew we would be able to grow so deeply together. And that's really what I was focusing on. And then I was so lucky that the rest of everything else fell into place. And I'm so grateful for that. But I knew that the core thing that I wanted in the relationship was there for us to grow deeper in our spiritual lives together. And that was the main focus for me. And then we started having fun. I was like, oh, he is fun. Like, he's just not just like a teacher and like just so deep, but you also were so fun. And all the things that I maybe hadn't thought about was important to me slowly started coming. And I was like, oh, that is really important to me. Gosh, I didn't realize that at the beginning that that's what I wanted. But yes, the doubt was definitely like taken away by me constantly going back to the fact that I wanted to be in that relationship with you for that reason. And yeah.
That's a good, honest answer. Yeah, I think my only doubt was always, and it's funny because it's so hard to express this, because I remember it was really funny when your family had mentioned this to you, and it was like, are you sure he's not going to run back and be a monk, right? And run back to the monastery. And it's so interesting because my only doubt in our relationship previously, not anymore, had ever been that, should I have been alone?
Yeah.
So my doubt was never like you or another person, or if you were the right person.
Yeah.
It's always been, it's either you or me being alone. And I think that comes from me loving being alone and spending so much time alone. And I think there was a part of our relationship where, because I was spending long periods on my own, I always considered that. And I had that consideration of like, oh, is this what I'm meant to be doing? Like, should I have done this? Like, I think a bit part of my doubt came from a bit of sadness, that I was like, oh, am I taking her away from her family? Am I taking her away from her dreams? Am I taking, like, that was where my doubt of should I have been alone came from, was, oh no, maybe I'm like, for my pursuing of my purpose, which I'm really dedicated to, am I taking her away? That was where my doubt came from, that am I so selfish that maybe I should be doing my purpose alone? Why should I drag someone else on my journey?
And I actually think at the beginning, I probably felt that way too. Like I probably, when we went to New York, it definitely felt like compromising, because I felt like the only thing I really had at that time in my life that I truly valued and felt I was very concrete in was my family, and that's what my whole life revolved around. And so I guess at the beginning, because I hadn't matured in my thoughts of what this relationship was, I did feel like that. And I remember there used to be times where I was like, well, I can't remember, but I'm sure that there were moments where in my mind I felt like, well, we have to go back for my family to do this because you've taken me away anyway. Like, you've taken me to New York, and so now we have to do this because I want to do this, or we have to, like, you need to do this for me because we've done this for you. And but I definitely, now looking back, I realized actually it was all so much more for, like, it. So I don't feel that way at all anymore. But I can, I can relate. I probably had those feelings a little bit at the beginning that you're probably feeling from me.
No, it's good. I think these are great conversations to have. And what's interesting about these conversations, though, is that sometimes you don't have them in the moment.
Yeah.
If you don't monitor that well, that could end up breaking something.
Definitely.
And we're lucky that it didn't.
I feel like it could have, though, if I then didn't choose to, like, figure out what was going wrong with me, and I was projecting that all on you and making it feel like it was the issue was our relationship, or the issue was you, but really it was me having a lack of awareness of myself, that I had to do that. Otherwise, I think I would have constantly kept blaming it on that and constantly felt that way.
And I have so much admiration for you and respect for you because of that, because I think that it's so easy. I was always trying to compensate and help in whatever way I could, but I feel like you doing that is what's made our relationship so strong, is that you've just really worked hard on the last few years of finding yourself, discovering yourself, working, and you've tried a lot of things. Like it's not been easy. And, you know, I feel like I found my thing when I was 18, and I've been doing it for 15 years. And it's funny for me to think that, because a lot of people online are like, oh, Jay, you've only been doing this online for like 3 or 4 years. And I've been doing this for 15 years. Yeah. But for you, I've watched you since we've met, which was, since we've been together, which is nearly 8 years now. Yeah. And I've seen you like try this, try that, experiment with this. And actually it's been really amazing. Why don't you tell people about how you feel your journey's been of discovering your real passion? Because I think people see you now and you've got your amazing YouTube channel and your Instagram page and all the wonderful stuff you're doing. And people may think, oh yeah, Radhi just, and yes, you've always had this energy that everyone loves you for and that I fell in love with you for. But the way you're expressing it now has definitely evolved, right?
Yeah, definitely. To be honest, I feel like I had no idea what I was doing till beginning of, March last year, when all of this started happening. And It was the first time I had to literally sit there and be like, oh crap, I have no excuse of, oh, I can't do this because I have to go with Jay traveling. Like, I can't start my own thing because, you know, I'm never really in the country and it's really difficult. I just want to focus on what Jay has and I'm just there to support him. And I realized as much as that was true and I did want to do that, it was probably a big covering for me not wanting to actually figure out what I wanted to do because everything just felt so scary to start something. And yeah, it just kind of stripped all of that away where I was like, no, I have to fill my days with something that feels meaningful and figure out what that is to me and how that looks to me. And so I just started and yeah, I definitely tried so many different ways and different things, whether it was like I did a website during that time and you know, it's not the best website, but it's like the website that I started off with and I put so much effort into it. I did like 100 recipes within, a couple of months because I really focused on it. And it just showed me because I was such a person that I would start something and as soon as I felt a little bit overwhelming or even felt like it was getting good or succeeding in some way, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that means I have to take another step forward and I'm not sure I want to do that. Okay, let's just shut it down and go somewhere else and do something else. And I realized that pattern that I had. And so I was really determined to not do that with this because I almost like get in my own way of being a failure, in my mind being a failure because I choose to not take the next step. Not because anything else comes in my way, but because the fear of the next step would always scare me enough to not want to take it. And so it was really amazing actually. I was like, just looking at myself from an like outside perspective and I was like, oh my gosh, I never ever thought she could do this. Like I never thought I could do that. I never thought I would actually still be making recipes. I thought it was like something I do for a month and then get bored and be like, can't be bothered to keep adding on to this website anymore. But yeah, and then I decided to try my YouTube thing, which oh my gosh, took so long to actually start because of fear again, pushing me away from it. But I mean, you've always been so amazing and supportive in that constantly. Like you see everything happening for me before I even dream about it. And I think it's just been so nice because whenever I've had doubts, you've been so amazing at helping me through them practically, where it's in like a supportive way of just love, but a lot of the time it's really taking the time to have the conversations with me. And I avoid the conversations and you're like, okay, what do you need to do next? Like, what is it? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it right now. I haven't figured it out and I just don't want to speak about it. But you constantly would help like push me through because you saw that it was coming from a place of fear, not because I actually didn't want to. And I think that's really important too. It's like, I know with a lot of your stuff, like 99% of the time, you don't necessarily need to speak to me about it, but there are certain times that you do want to discuss things and vice versa. Like I obviously need you to input in a lot more of my stuff because I feel like you've done a lot of the things that I've done and I really appreciate your advice for it. But I think there is so much of the support being in so many different ways throughout the times that I needed it. And yeah, to be honest, I don't know how I got here, but I'm really happy that I did it. I'm so happy because I never expected myself to be able to do that ever. And I just genuinely feel for everybody else that's listening to this that I was like, that's where my spontaneity that can be a strength and ended up being something that was such a weakness for me in the areas where I wanted to commit to something. And yeah, and I'm not just saying this, genuinely, if I can do it, ask my mum. She will tell you, if I can do it, I 100% know that other people can. Whatever it is that you love doing, just try it out. And yeah, if I can do it, oh my gosh, you all can definitely do it. Yeah. But enough about me.
What I genuinely love about the way you're doing it though, is that even though you have become more organized and disciplined and focused to figure this out, you haven't lost who you are. Yeah. And I think that's the hardest part. And I love seeing that in you. Like each and every video, the amount of effort you put in. I know the amount of effort that goes behind the scenes when you're about to launch a video and like your nerves and your excitement. And you just want to make everything so wonderful for everyone. And I love that. I love that even though you've become organized and focused and disciplined and all those things that you've had to learn, that you haven't lost yourself in it. Because I think that's possible too. So I love watching it and it makes me really happy. And what you were just saying at the end, you know, there's an old relationship rule of like, don't keep the score. And it's been said for many, many years of like, don't keep score in a relationship. But often score feels like, oh, I did this favor. What did someone else do? And what I realized is that score should not be kept energetically. And so what I mean by that is, I really feel that you carry the relationship sometimes emotionally. And so I may be carrying it mentally, but you're carrying it emotionally. And so if you're only looking at the mental score, I'll be going like, oh, well, I'm doing everything. Why are you not doing anything mentally? Like, you're not planning, you're not setting goals, you're not doing this. But that's because I'm only measuring it on my scorecard. And I think it's so important to be like, well, there are so many different scorecards. There's physical, financial, mental, emotional, spiritual. There are 5 scorecards. First of all, there shouldn't be a scorecard. But I'm saying there's 5 types of offering in a relationship, and you're only ever looking at the one you give.
But it's also useful to think of it in that way. Like you're saying, there's not scorecards, but I think it's useful because I think naturally we all have tendencies to want to be the hero, or like want to be the person that like, oh, but I've done this and I've done that. And so actually looking at it in that way allows you to see where your strength is in your scorecard, but then realize hopefully where the other person is also contributing. So I think, but yeah, that's really a good way of putting it. I've never thought of it in that way.
No, I've thought about that so many times. I think whenever I've been in that position of like, oh, I'm doing so much for this relationship, and I do. There are times when I feel like that. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this, and then you just stop and you're like, that's just stupid because there are so many levels you carry the relationship on.
Totally.
And I encourage everyone to do that with their partner, is just really look at like, where are you carrying the relationship and where are they carrying the relationship? And I promise you that someone in your relationship is carrying something. And if they're not carrying anything, then sure, that's not a great relationship. But I think there are so many relationships where we miss what someone's doing.
I think that really stops you from, and actually I didn't think of it in that way, but whenever I do think about when I'm irritated at something or when I feel that way, thinking about it in your way, and sometimes I have thought about it in that way, it makes you really not be selfish. Like it makes you, a lot of the times, if you feel that way, you can end up stopping yourself from continuing to do that or continuing to be the person carrying this section. But I think when you think of it as these other 4 areas that other person may be helping in or carrying, it stops you from limiting yourself in what you can give and realizing that actually I could be giving everything in this category and that's okay because he's giving everything in this category and I don't want that category, so I'm good for him to handle that. And so, yeah, I think like that just reminds me of all the stuff I always get, like even when I put up cooking stuff, or I'll get DMs just being like, does Jay ever cook for you? And does Jay do this for you? And I'm like, no. And it doesn't irritate me at all because I don't like doing finance stuff. Like it may be such a cliche of like how, I like being in the kitchen, but it's out of choice. Like I love being in the kitchen.
It's not because you're a woman.
It's not because I'm a woman. That's what I mean.
It's your passion as an individual.
And like sometimes when there's been times, remember when like some days I'll be like, you'll be like, oh, someone's come to our house and you're like, yeah, this is her work area. And some people don't even know what I'm doing. And I'm like, and we both laugh about it.
I always show people my office, which is where we are now.
Yeah.
And then when we get to the kitchen, I always say, and this is Radhi's office. And I don't mean it in a condescending or sexist way at all. It's actually her office.
Yeah.
Like that's where you experiment 100%. And that's where you create recipes and
But yeah, I just think it's really important that, because I do still always get people, but like doesn't it annoy you that he doesn't cook? Doesn't it annoy you that he doesn't even want to try or make you a meal? And I'm like, no, because I really don't want to learn about this that he does and he manages. And I think it's so important because you can get so wrapped up in what other people do for each other in relationships. And what other people are carrying for each other in relationships, and you see this one aspect of it and you're like, oh well, why doesn't he carry that for me, and why doesn't she carry that for me or do that for me? And I think it's so important because it can really stop you from giving as much as you should be or want to be giving in a relationship, because you're putting up your own barriers and telling yourself that you shouldn't because he's not giving enough.
Exactly. All right, couple more questions.
Go on then.
This is a good one. When are you most scared to be vulnerable with your partner?
When are you most scared to be vulnerable?
Like when are you scared of like being really honest and open? I'm thinking. Go on.
Sometimes when, like if like you've already given me advice on something and then like I'm kind of asking for like again and I'm like really confused about something again and you're really nice about it. But sometimes I feel like it's, when I know you're going to tell me something that I don't necessarily want to hear because you've already told me before, and I don't necessarily want you to give me the answer because I know you're right. that makes me really annoyed. So sometimes I don't feel like being vulnerable about how I'm feeling because I know the answer you're going to give and that I don't want to hear it.
So what do I need to be to help you be more vulnerable?
No, I think it's more me.
No, seriously.
No, I think it's very much so just me.
I think
it's me just wanting to be stubborn and not wanting you to be right.
That's like a recurring theme in this podcast right now.
I'm not stubborn.
I'm not allowed to say it. That's the thing. That's the rule I've learned. You're not allowed to say it. I'm not allowed to say Radhi's reflect. That's when I feel most vulnerable. It's like I'm not allowed to repeat something she said that makes me look good.
I'm like, yeah, I should really tidy up after myself or whatever. He's like, yeah, we should. Like, you're not allowed to tell me that. You're not allowed to tell me that I should tidy up. I'll tell myself if I want to tidy up after myself, okay?
I feel most, I'm trying to think. I think the time I feel most vulnerable is like when I've spent a lot of money on something. Like, I feel like that's it, but I'm trying to think of it like.
Oh yeah, like when you tell me not to, oh yeah, make sure you just park properly and don't ruin the rims. I'm like, if I want to ruin the rims, I'll ruin the rims, okay?
No, but I don't feel vulnerable. I say that to you. I'm trying to think of something. When am I scared of being vulnerable with you? When am I scared of being vulnerable with you?
Wait, I don't understand the money thing.
No, like if I've just bought like a really expensive suit or something. Oh, you don't
want to tell me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like if I've just bought an expensive suit for like an award ceremony.
Because he knows he's got a Gucci wife.
Yeah, so I get scared of being like, yeah, this is how much this suit costs because I'm wearing it.
And what do I always say? I'm like, that's okay, it's for your work.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. No, you're always nice about it.
In my mind, I'm like, it's for your work. It's fine.
No, you're nice about it. I think it's a silly thing just because of upbringing and raising and stuff. It's not you. It's not you at all. You never stop me. And then I'm trying to think of something more deep because that was a fun one. That I'm just
with your health, like sometimes with health stuff.
Yes.
You know why? Because sometimes, like, because I'm cooking for him, I take things quite personally, and so sometimes
but you try so hard.
No, I know,
like
but
you don't, as in that's not.
But I feel like sometimes from you, I feel you get a little bit worried about saying if something has upset your stomach or if something hasn't made you feel right, whenever you have been in ups and downs with your health, or whenever I've given you something and I've suggested something and it hasn't worked. And I'm like, but why hasn't it worked? Like, I just don't understand. And I think it makes you vulnerable and I get quite defensive.
No, I don't think so. But you're trying so like, I don't think you get defensive. I think you try really hard. And so it's hard for you because you're trying to figure out so many ways to support me or help me.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to go wrong. And this is where it always comes back down to. It's like, when you trust the person loves you, you know that someone even being defensive is out of love.
Yeah, well, I am defensive though about it, to be honest.
No, but I think that comes from the fact that you're trying so hard.
Yeah, maybe because I'm just like, oh, what? And it's hard when you're not in control of something and you're trying to be in control of it. But yeah, I feel like that's when I know is you are a little bit scared to be vulnerable because you want to tell me, but you also don't want to upset me or like.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I never want you to feel like you're trying really hard and it's not working on something because I don't think that's fair because it's not necessarily your responsibility.
Or like when you want to play PlayStation and you pretend like it's like a work meeting with your partner.
And never say that's a work meeting.
And really you just want to play PlayStation together, but you're like, it's for work. And I'm like, yeah, it's just because you want to play.
Okay,
another one.
You're giving way too many.
Well, can I even go?
Okay, so we're on to the final two segments, which is fill in the blank and final five.
Fill in the blank and final five.
Yeah, so fill in the blank is you fill in the blank at the end of the sentence. So we're both going to say it, all right?
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I feel most supported by my partner when?
I feel like we did this last time.
Yeah, but not the same question.
I feel most supported by my partner when he brings me snacks when I don't even ask for them.
That never happens.
I know, that's why I just don't feel it right now. No, I feel that's my answer. You go.
I feel most supported by my partner when
I bring you cut up fruit.
No, I mean, that's a fun one, yeah. But when
he likes his fruit cut up when he's eating it, like a little baby, because his mum used to do it for him when he was younger. And when he goes back every single time, his mum cuts his fruit up into a little bowl. And he has his little assortment of fruit bowl every day. And he's like, I really love it when my fruit's cut up. So that's what I've been doing, cutting up fruit midday, halfway through my work day.
I haven't had it today, to be honest.
I'm sitting there cutting up fruit for this king over here. Cut up fruit makes him feel support.
My honest answer was going to be when my partner's present with me, like when I feel like you're really fully present. Okay.
And cut up fruit too.
Commitment means.
Oh, you're really crying.
I'm like, you put me in there. Not crying. I mean,
J. Shetty exposed.
Commitment means.
Commitment means. Commitment means. Commitment means like showing up in different ways for one another when the time is right.
That's a nice
knowing when it's your time to show up and knowing when it's their time to show up. Yeah.
I think commitment means mutual love, boundaries, agreements, connection. Like when it's mutually created. Like you create a plan together, you create boundaries together, you create expectations together. That's what commitment means. And then you honor those.
Totally.
Conflict can bring.
Well, let's just say I box, so conflict can bring.
God.
A few. I'm joking. I don't do that to him. Conflict can bring
Deeper love.
I was going to say something like that.
No, you weren't.
I was.
No, you weren't. You chose boxing.
Conflict can bring boxing. Conflict can bring really good like makeup meals. Like whenever we make up, we can be like, oh, let's go get some like Cocobella creamery ice cream.
Is that really what happens? That's why we haven't had it for so long, because we haven't had to make up.
We haven't really had many fights lately. Let's pick one now. I've got plenty to say.
So that we can...
So then we can have Cocobella.
Final five. These are one word or one sentence answers.
Yeah, stop giving such long answers.
Okay. What's one thing you recently discovered about yourself that surprised you?
That I can commit to things and just maintain it.
I always knew this, but I guess I forgot it. I love exercising with sport. I just need to play more sport. I need to stop forcing myself. So that.
Lovely.
Okay. What about our relationship makes you feel powerful?
They were both on the same page like a lot of the time. I'm like, oh, I like this. And you're like, oh, me too. I'm like, oh, okay. Like even if small or big things, like we are very much so on the same page. And even if we're not, we're both kind of okay with coming to an agreement that we both like. That's mine.
Cool. My answer is you always trust me when the chips are down.
What was the question again?
Like what in our relationship makes you feel powerful?
Yeah, got you.
So for me, I what makes me feel powerful is
when we're all in.
You trust me even when things are not working out.
Yeah.
Externally. I that makes me feel really confident and strong.
I'm glad.
Okay.
Just don't use my chips. Use your own.
What do you think our relationship will be like by our 50th anniversary?
Oh, Lord.
I didn't choose these.
What do I think?
I think the better question is, how will we celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary?
My mind's always like, with my family, with our family. We'd have a really nice 50th celebration with the whole family all together on holiday somewhere.
Sounds great.
Just letting you know.
That's my answer. Sounds great.
His would be like, just us two on a beach with a tennis court and, and cutthroat.
I haven't had it today.
Next.
So. All right, 2 last questions. What about your partner have you grown to love that you initially disliked?
I can't think of anything.
Good.
You go first. No, I can't think of many things I dislike. I'm just trying to think of what I now like about you.
I think it was your I've just realized that I think it was what I said earlier, like your lack of organization or whatever. Like initially that really irked me, and then now I'm just like, but that's what lets you be spontaneous. Like that's what lets your ever freshness come out. And if you became all of that thing, then you can't, not saying that you can't be organized, like you are organized now and you have become, but I mean, if you became an organizational rigid beast, then you lose that.
Yeah.
You lose part of that. So
I think mine for you is probably just like your general way of thinking was not something that I was used to.
That's true. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Whether it was the quality versus quantity amount of time, because I was not used to that. Whether it was, your just general way of thinking where I used to be like, oh, well, maybe I don't want to do that. But then I realized actually is a really good way of thinking. And even though it used to like scare me to think like that, because I felt like I was getting rid of a lot of my old like habits and ways of thinking. Now I've actually become quite fond of it.
Okay.
Next.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay, fifth and final question of the whole interview. What's the funniest thing that's happened to both of you?
The funniest thing that's ever happened to both of us?
I was going to say
that. Go on. What were you going to say?
A few weeks or months ago, someone put us up on this Instagram page called Sibling Revelry. And what this page does is that it puts up pictures of siblings or couples and asks people to guess
vote whether they're siblings or couples.
And so they posted a picture of us, and I think 60% said siblings and 40% said couple, probably 40% who know who we are. And it's really funny because all the awkward pictures on that page
are siblings. Yeah.
So that's probably one of the funniest things that's ever happened.
That is really funny. That was a good laugh. That was good laugh.
I can think of another one too.
Go on.
I remember when we were traveling to someone's birthday or something when we first started dating and we got lost in the middle
That's what I was going to say.
No way, really?
That's literally where I went back to.
Go on.
No, I was thinking of when we were, that's what it was. We were going somewhere and it was like countryside. And then somehow we drove into like a barn or like field area and I was so scared. And that was the first time that I was in a very scary situation with you. And it was the time I realized like how you will always be and always have been since that like calm. My dad has always been this person for me. So it was so cool because you literally took on that role of like, you were so calm, you're so like, even when you're scared.
I was so scared.
Even when I was young, even if my dad was so scared, he would never ever show he was scared and he'd always have me. Like I would never feel scared because he was never scared. And you literally I got a glimpse of that with you and I was like, oh my gosh.
I was so scared. I was so scared.
But you did so good that day. So yeah, that was funny. Funny now, not funny then.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching that video. If you enjoyed it, here's another one I think you'll love.
Instead of criticizing the other person, tell them what you want. And tell them what you want without implying that they're not doing it. Because then they pay attention only to the fact that you told them you're not doing it, and then they will basically do what every human being does, which is defend themselves.